Hello, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon. And thank you for joining today's webinar. I'm John Lu from TNT5, and our topic today is Hackers Keep Evolving, How Proactive Threat Hunting Keeps Us Staying Ahead. In this session, I will walk you through the evolving techniques used by threat actors and how proactive threat hunting helps organizations detect and stop them before it's too late. We will also look at some case studies and live demonstrations along the way. Here's the outline of today's session. First, I will give you a brief introduction to set the stage. Then we will discuss recent threats that have been able to bypass EDR solutions. Next, I will introduce what an ideal threat hunting platform looks like, followed by a live demo. Finally, we will review a couple of real-world threat hunting case studies. Before we dive into the main topic, let me briefly introduce myself. I've been with TNT5 for over 8 years, initially leading our global technical support team for 7 years. And now I'm in charge of global engagement. For those of you who may not be familiar with TNT5, we are a cybersecurity company founded in 2014 with a strong focus on APT origin, with a strong focus on APAC origin APTs. We have over 10 years of threat research experience, handling more than 1,000 instances and tracking over 160 adversary groups. Our specialties include APT research, threat hunting technology, and professional services, such as instant response and NDR. We are one of the few vendors in the region that provides both threat intelligence and threat hunting capabilities, which allow us to detect and respond to APT attacks more efficiently. Let's start by looking at the recent instance where attackers successfully bypassed EDR solutions. Here are some real-world examples from 2024 and early 2025. From April 2024, a new technique called hook chain until the recent discussed EDR silencer, a rating tool which is capable of disrupting endpoint security solutions. These examples show that EDR evasion is no longer a niche skill. It's becoming mainstream among both APTs and cybercriminals. From our own research, TNT5 has identified multiple Chinese APTs actively using EDR evasion tools. For example, tools like Client, Chat Loader, Hello Kitty, Sharp Agent, and EDR Silencer are designed to block EDR communications, disable protection, or bypass Windows security mechanisms. By the way, a summarized version of this report is now available on our website. Feel free to visit and get it for further review. As we all agree, EDR plays a central role in modern endpoint protection strategies. It's focusing on detecting advanced threats in real time, covering most stages of the cyber kill chain, from exploitation to command and control and other malicious behaviors. This means even if the attacker bypassed your firewall or antivirus, EDR should still be able to spot suspicious behavior and trigger an alert. However, as we all understand, attackers are finding ways to bypass these detections. From this slide, we can see EDR collects telemetry data from endpoint agents, including application, system behavior, and network activities. This data is sent to a management console where it's analyzed in real time. Based on detection rules and behavior patterns, the system flags suspicious activities for investigation and response. The key here is visibility. EDR relies on being able to continuously monitor and report activities from endpoints. If an attacker can disrupt this visibility, the detection chain is broken. So the attackers are no longer just trying to disable EDR. They are also using techniques to evade detection, to delay detection, or exploit areas that EDR doesn't monitor by default. Some common methods include, first, they stop EDR agent entirely. Second, they stop logging functions, so suspicious behaviors isn't recorded. Third, they disable monitoring modules. And fourth, they impersonating trusted function calls to hide malicious activity. And fifth, they exploit unmounted OS features, such as Windows fibers. And the last, they block communication between endpoint and its own EDR servers. So in the next 2 slides, we will break these down in details. Let's look at the first 3 in detail. The first one, BYOVD, I believe this one is very famous, which stands for bring your own vulnerable driver. The attackers, they can install the vulnerable driver for the victims, and then they exploit the legitimate but vulnerable driver to operate at the kernel level, which allows them to kill security processes to evade detection. And the second is ETW bypass. ETW stands for Event Tracing for Windows. Okay, the attacker, they stop ETW so that the security product who relies on ETW will be not able to see any log events. The third is API unhooking. The attacker, they remove the hooks set by security softwares to prevent it from detecting malicious calls. And here are the other 3 for your information. We will be focusing on the last one today, blocking EDR communication. By using network level techniques, attackers prevent the EDR from sending alerts or telemetries to its server. Once the communication is blocked, even the best detection rule won't trigger because the alerts never leave the endpoints. So later on, we will dive into one of the most known tools in late 2024, EDR Silencer. This threatening tool is designed to disrupt endpoint security solutions without killing process or modifying binaries directly. Instead, it uses a legitimate Windows feature in a malicious way, which makes it even harder to detect. Let's see how it works. EDR Silencer is a tool leverage the Windows filtering platform, which is WFP. WFP is a Microsoft provided packet filtering framework. It's what underlies the Windows firewall, and it allows developers to monitor and filter network traffic at multiple layers, from the network layer to transport and even application layer. In normal use, it's great for building security products, but in the wrong hands, it becomes a perfect stealth weapon to block EDR traffic without touching the EDR software itself. This is Trend Micro's 2024 Threat Intelligence Report on EDR Silencer. From the report, it describes the tool's workflow as follows. It first enumerates the EDR process running on the system, then executes EDR Silencer to block their network communications. What's dangerous here is that everything still looks normal from the endpoint's perspective. The EDR service is running, no error pop up, but nothing is being reported. This makes it extremely difficult for security teams to notice the compromise until much later. The slide shows the EDR silencer's GitHub repository. In short, it uses WFP to block EDR network traffic. For example, from the commands showed on the slides. This command would add curl.exe to the block list, preventing it from making network connections. A look at the source code shows that this project lists target EDR processes and then use WFP APIs to create filters that completely block communication between those EDRs and their servers. In the MITRE ATT and CK framework, this technique maps to impaired defenses indicator blocking. The goal is to interfere with the defense mechanism's capability to respond and detect. So you may be wondering why it's hard to detect. First, because this technique uses leverage native Windows API, which are also used by other legitimate software. That makes it difficult to distinguish between good, benign, and malicious activity based on API calls alone. Second, it doesn't tamper with the EDR binary itself, nor does it affect the system's overall network connectivity, making it less noticeable to both users and administrators. Finally, many people might consider it's a firewall misconfiguration or network issue rather than a targeted attack. Lastly, EDR silencer isn't the only tool that disrupt EDR from network layer. Projects like EDR Prison and Shutter use similar concepts, blocking or disrupting EDR communication at network level. And while some of these are intended for research or red teaming, we've already seen techniques like this adopted by real-world threat actors. Let's look at some other examples. Bashware is an attack technique first described by Checkpoint in 2017. This slide shows the attack flow of Bashware. The idea is to abuse the Windows subsystem for Linux, which is WSL, to run malicious code in a way that most Windows-based security products cannot detect. The process starts with enabling WSL using the DISN Unity. Next, the attacker enables developer mode in Windows, which relaxes certain restrictions and allows installation non-store apps. Then the attacker uses the WSL command. They install a Linux distribution. Finally, with the software YHQ, they convert a Windows executable into a Linux ELF binary and run it inside WSL environments. The danger here is that many security tools don't monitor what happened inside WSL. So even if malicious binary is actively running and connecting to the network, it may remain invisible to EPPs. Next, from Lobus, leaving of the land binary and scripts. From Lobus project, it shows WSL.exe can be abused for malicious purposes, including downloading and executing files. Back to the WSL in Bashware attack scenario. The attacker executes an ELF binary in Windows, but all actions actually carry out inside WSL, including ELF binaries, network activities, and file operations. None of these can be captured by ETW. Imagine an attacker running their malware in a completely invisible sandbox inside your Windows operating system. It's what's happening here. Now, let's talk about another common tactic, PowerShell obfuscation. PowerShell, we all understand PowerShell is a favorite tool for attackers because it's so powerful and built into Windows. By encoding or restructuring their commands, attackers can bypass signature-based detection. In the MITRE ATT and CK framework, this maps to the technique, obfuscated files or information, command obfuscation. The goal is to interfere with detection by hiding indicators of attack, making it harder to identify malicious activity. One common obfuscation technique is string obfuscation. Attackers use methods like reordering, reversing, or replacing characters to disguise commands. Even a simple command like write host can be made unrecognizable by applying these transformations, making keyword-based detection less effective. Another technique is compression-based obfuscation, commonly using methods like gzip or deflat. Encoding is another common method, often using ASCII codes, hex, or base64 strings. In this method, the original PowerShell command is converted into an encoded format, then decoded at runtime before execution. So after seeing all these evasion techniques, the question is, how do we hunt something that is designed not to be detected? So why threat hunting matters? Instead of waiting for an alert, threat hunting means actively looking for suspicious objects, even when the attacker is trying to stay invisible. It's about shifting from a reactive mindset to a proactive one. Let's talk about when you actually need to launch a threat hunting. The first scenario is critical vulnerabilities. When a new high-risk or zero-day vulnerability is disclosed, attackers might try to exploit it before patches are applied. In this gap, threat hunting helps verify whether your system have already been compromised. Second, abnormal detections. If you see something unusual in your alerts or logs, even if it's not a confirmed incident, that's the perfect time to hunt, actually. You can pivot from that initial clue and see if it's part of a compromise. Third, supply chain attacks. Instances like SolarWinds or MoveIt have shown us that you can be compromised indirectly through vendors or partners. If your suppliers are at risk, hunting allows you to check whether that exposure has impacted you. And finally, regular health checks. This aligns with a zero trust mindset. Assume breach, always verify. Many regulations and compliance frameworks also require proactive threat hunting. Let's use the COVID control to better understand security measures. During the pandemic, we had a lot of countermeasures to defend against the COVID. However, we eventually need a rapid test to verify our health status. The same mindset in cybersecurity. No matter how well protected you think you are, threat hunting is required to verify your cybersecurity status. Here are a quick glance of Tintify's threat hunting solution. First, our solution is easy to dispatch. The scanner itself is the portable executable, so there is no need for installation. We also have an offline scanner that works with air-gapped endpoints. Second, user mode we are a user mode agent, so ThreatSonar doesn't require kernel access, which means it won't cause system conflict or BSOD, blue screen of death. It's also compatible with other EPPs, so you can run it alongside with your existing EPPs without conflict. Third, flexible deployment. You can run it on-premise or on the cloud, depending on your operational needs. We have decided to balance security with confidentiality requirements, so you don't have to compromise one for the other. And finally, the tool is designed for threat hunting. ThreatSonar is an intelligence-driven and APT-focused threat hunting tool. It's built for forensic-based proactive hunting to find advanced threats that traditional solutions may fail to detect. This slide describes the data we collect and analyze during threat hunting scan. We look at behavioral records, files and process metadata, network artifacts, registry, autoruns, logbins, and event logs, and more. Once we collected all necessary artifacts from the endpoints, we feed them into our threat hunting platform. The process begins with threat modeling. This helps us to identify and prioritize potential threats. We apply multiple detection logics, such as YAR rules, IOCs, attributes, to identify each object, such as processes for its capabilities. And also we apply sigma rules for artifacts and log analysis. This combination allows us to detect both known and unknown threats, even when there are no obviously alerts. Now, having the right tools is only part of the picture. The real effectiveness of threat hunting also depends on how much we know about the threats, the intelligence. Let's move on to the next slide to see how the pyramid of pain shapes our hunting strategy. This diagram describes the effectiveness of intelligence-based threat hunting. We started from the top of the pyramid. We started from the top of the pyramid of pain. TTPs and tools are hardest for attackers to change. So that's where we focus. Indicators like hashes, IPs, or domains are easy for them to change. So relying on those is less effective. So intelligence-based hunting means we are chasing what's hardest for the attacker to hide. To move on, we will share how to utilize the threat hunting tool and demonstrate our key features. The deployment of ThreatSonar is designed to be fast and flexible. First, you deploy a management console ThreatSonar server, which is a virtual appliance that can be deployed on-premise or on cloud. Then you generate a scanner, which supports online or even offline execution on an air-gapped endpoint. And you can utilize the software deployment systems, such as AD-Push, to dispatch the scanner to the endpoint. Running the scan job might take around 1 hour to accomplish, but no worries. our lightweight scanner requires only 200 megabytes of memory and uses only one single core of CPU to run the scan job. After the scan job, the reports will be uploaded to the management console for review and correlation analysis. In the upcoming demo, we will walk through how ThreatSonar detect suspicious activities and do correlation analysis from the platform. So please give me a minute to change the screen. Okay, so now you are able to see our threat hunting platform, ThreatSonar. Okay, from the demonstration, I will jump into one critical event from here. Okay, for example, we see there is a critical event happened detected on Web 01, which obviously a web server. So from the scan report, we see different objects here, and some of the critical objects, as we can identify, it might be a web shell, in my personal opinion. Of course, we can download these sample for further analysis, but to realize the file name, the file extension and the server's name, we assume it's a web shell. Okay, so besides AAA.ASPX, we also see the IIS process, which is W3WP.exe. Okay, we believe the file itself is legitimate, but what's going wrong is within the memory block. Because IIS process is leveraged to run web shell, so there is some malicious content within the memory block. And from ThreatSonar, we also identify which specific memory blocks are malicious. Okay, and you can even download these specific memory block without retrieving the full memory to do further analysis. And from another object, sys.exe, we also observe it matches our YAR rule, which is designed to detect APT threats. And from the reports, we see the suspicious process command line, which might address a proxy connection, a reverse proxy connection to a suspicious IP address end with 78. And they are connecting to the port 4443. Okay. And from the TCP connection, we also see the SAN evidence of the connection to the suspicious IP address. So from here, what can we do next? Because we just found a compromised, a web shell, and the suspicious IP address. So from now, we can dive into the endpoint page of Web 01, and we will try to figure out the TCP connection because we just observed a suspicious IP address. So from TCP view, we visit the graphical features here. So as we understand, Web 01 is using sys.exe to connect to a suspicious IP address end with 78. So to pivot from this IP address, we can select flatten. So you will see besides sys.exe from Web 01, there are two other processes named explorer.exe from AD01 and svch0st.exe also from AD01, which is quite fishy, right? So we can just click and dive into these specific reports. Okay, so from the report of AD01, we see these objects detected and matched our YAR rules, and we consider it's malicious. Okay, the first one is obviously a decoy file trying to decoy a legitimate SVC host. Yeah. And also from the rules name, we understand it might be a corpus strike related elements. And also besides these decoy file, we also observe explorer.exe, okay, which we also believe the file itself is legitimate. But what's going wrong is within the memory, because we also identify an injected process behavior happening on this process. Okay, so the same idea, we can look into the memory blocks and do further analysis. And also, what else we can do? We can try to figure out what happened exactly on these specific endpoints. So from here, I can focus on these objects and jump to the timeline page. Okay, from the timeline page of view, you will understand because ThreatSonar, as mentioned, we use the forensic techniques to do threat hunting. So we collect all the artifacts like file execution, file modification, or file creation events from the artifacts, from the endpoints, and we review the timeline to figure out what happened exactly before the scan job. So from here, we can also look into these endpoints to see what happened. On the other hand, we can do correlation using the time information. For example, from here, we can look into these specific objects to collect all the relative time events, creation events, execution event, and modification events of these decoy files. And from here, we can do two things actually. The first one, we can do correlation using event logs. On the other hand, we can do correlation using time as the clue. So from here, we just click and set up the filter, and then we enable the correlation. So the filter will auto apply a 5 minutes of time window to see what happened exactly in my environment. So as you can see, besides events from AD01, there are still events from other endpoints in my environment. There are some creation events, there are some execution events. So we can do threat hunting, we can do correlation analysis using the time information as the clue. So besides the time information, we can also use event log to see lateral movement lateral movements. So with one single click, it also applies the filters to filter the event logs, the lateral movement event logs regarding AD01. So as you can see, right before AD01 was compromised, there is another endpoint, end with 002, tries to connect to AD01. And as you can see, it also tries to brute force. Maybe it's a brute force. It tries to net log on, but eventually it failed. But with another account, we see the successful login records here. Okay, so let's see. This endpoint might also be suspicious because it tries to access AD01 right before it was compromised. Okay, so these are some key features of our threat hunting platform. And with the different point of view, if we detect the incident, for example, we just walk through the detection reports of Web01. So we have another features which allow us to see incidents differently. For example, from the report of Web01, we also generate a process tree like this. So we understand there is a Web01, so we detect the possible web shell, and then we detect the malicious IIS process, which triggers cmd.exe, and then execute sys.exe to create the reverse proxy to the suspicious IP address. Okay, so these are the instances that we use to manage for our partners or end users. And the other features I would like to highlight is the threat hunting features. Although we observed a lot of match rules, critical levels, but in practical, there might not be so many match rules so many detections, because a lot of threat actors, they are trying to hide themselves. So from here, we can leverage ThreatSonar to do threat hunting using these attributes, using all different attributes, the combination of each attributes to figure out what are some potential threats, what are some unknown threats in my environments. For example, I can filter some auto-run process without a legitimate signature on it. So I can just apply the filter and see what happened. On the other hand, we can also leverage this filter to filter not only attributes, but also the match rules or even the parent process. So besides the attributes, we can also do filter using the company profile, the digital signature. For example, if we observe a potential supply chain attack, then we can filter its digital signature to see how many vulnerable, how many compromised software are running in my environment. And also we can do filter using the accounts information, or we can do filter using the listen port. Let's say we can filter what are some suspicious ports listening in my environment. Maybe they are some unsecure ports like port 80 or some others. Okay, so another features I would like to highlight is the IOC. From our platform, we allows the users to bring their own intelligence. That means our platform allows them to apply their own IOC. IOCs like hash, domains, IPs can be applied to ThreatSonar server. And our scanner will carry all these IOCs to do the scan job, to run the forensic scan. And furthermore, we also have our built-in YARA rule editors. So it's easy for our users to apply third-party YARA rules or just write their own YARA rules from our platform for threat detections. So this is for the demonstration of our threat hunting platform. Remember the lesson we learned from the COVID control? You eventually need threat hunting to verify your cybersecurity status. So I think let's wrap up the main part of today's session. We've covered the latest EDR evasion techniques, why proactive threat hunting is critical, and how ThreatSonar helps detect what others fail to detect. If you are interested in learning how to utilize our threat hunting solution, ThreatSonar, in threat hunting, compromise assessment, as well as instant response cases, we provide a comprehensive certification training for it. Thank you again for joining today. If you found this session useful, feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn to stay updated on our latest research and events. Remember that the threats we face are always evolving, but with the right mindset, tools, and threat intelligence, we can stay one step ahead.